In the beginning of the movie, we see a military research lab where a rat is being caged by some scientist for a test. It tries to find food inside, but suddenly an invisible thing grabs it and killed it brutally. Then we are introduced to Dr. Sebastian Caine. He has discovered a secret formula which can make any object invisible. Now he is working on the reverse serum to cure invisibility. After working for hours, he takes a break and watches his neighbor changing her clothes. But she covers the windows and he gets disappointed. While walking in his room, he gets an idea about the formula and tests it on his computer. He immediately calls his colleague Linda McKay, who is also his ex-girlfriend. He tells her about his new theory and notices a stranger on her bed. He asks her about the man, but she quickly moves her camera to hide her affair. She says she is not ready to reveal her relationship. Then Sebastian shows her the reversed formula. He asks her to call her lab partner Matthew Kensington and asks him to prepare a subject to test the formula. After talking to Sebastian, she wakes up Matthew and informs him that they are asked to visit the lab. She tells him that Sebastian has found the reversed formula. She says they both should go there separate to hide their relationship from everyone. Matthew asks her that they should reveal their relation. But Linda is not ready and says one day she will reveal everything to their friends. When they reach the lab, Matthew visits the subject animal who has already gone through the invisibility experiment. It is a female gorilla named Isabel and her body is completely invisible. Matt tries to give her an injection wearing heat vision goggles. Suddenly she goes angry and scratches him. She runs out of the cage and Matt runs after her. While chasing the animal, he hits into Sebastian and both fall down. Sebastian takes a tranquilizer weapon and asks Matthew that he will be the first to get the gorilla. Matthew sees Isabel and tries to shoot her but failed. Then Sebastian hits her with one shot and makes her unconscious. After this we are introduced to Sarah Kennedy, who works as a lab veterinarian. She is angry at Sebastian for injecting the formula into Isabel without testing it. He says that testing takes lots of time and he doesn't want to waste it. Then Linda comes there and tells Sebastian that everything is ready for the reversed experiment. Sarah checks Grelia's vitals and sprays a dye at her arm to give her an injection. Matthew prepares the serum and Sebastian takes the injection from him. He says only he is allowed to inject her serum. When he injects the serum into Isabel's body, it travels through her veins and goes to the heart. Everyone watches it carefully and gets shocked. They see that the animal's body is being visible slowly. Suddenly, Isabel starts screaming and thrashing around in pain as her blood pressure and heart rate rise. She gets a heart attack and Linda tries to revive her with shocks. Sebastian orders Matthew to give her an intracardiac injection. But before he could inject the ape, the heart starts beating again. When she gets normal, the body becomes visible. Now everyone is very excited to see the success and holds a special party to celebrate. They decide to have a dinner in an expensive restaurant. Sebastian remembers her previous relationship with Linda and tells her that he wants her to come back in his life. He tries to kiss her but she pushes him back. This shocks Sebastian and he realizes that she doesn't like him anymore. After some days, he meets with a government organization to report them about his research. But he announces that he has failed at reversing the formula, which shocks Linda and Matt. Sebastian says that he needs more time to study the formula. Dr. Howard Kramer appreciates his determination and ingenuity. But he also warns him about the government, that he will be replaced if doesn't show any result to them in following days. After leaving the meeting, he tells his colleagues that he doesn't want to let the government know about their success. He fears that they will take over the serum. He says they have to test the formula on a human body before the government know their secret. Matt asks him about the rules, but he says that they have to break them to get something. He tells them they have only one chance to get the Nobel Prize in their hands. Later, at the lab, Sebastian announces that he got the permission for the human test. He tells his team that they had successfully done the reversal and brought back 7 subjects in the last weeks. He explains them that now human testing is the most dangerous than previous. So he has decided to inject the serum into his own body. He will stay invisible for 3 days and after that he will take the reversed serum. The next day, Sebastian is completely ready for the procedure. Matthew tells him if he wants, he can change his decision, but he refuses to back out. He urges to be the first human who will get invisibility powers. The procedure has started and Linda prepares the serum injection. But he decides to take the injection himself so that no one will be blamed if something goes wrong. As soon as the serum enters his body, he starts feeling paresthesia in his arms. He screams and feels extreme pain. His skin begins to vanish. Suddenly his heart stops beating and Carter brings the defibrillator to shock him. But before they give him shocks, his heart rate slowly begins to stabilize. He loses consciousness and his body turns invisible. After 17 hours, he wakes up and gets troubled by high brightness. He asks Linda to turn off all lights. He tells her that he is unable to shut his eyelids. Linda says that he can still see when he shuts them as they have become transparent now. He walks to a mirror and gets shocked to find himself invisible. After this, Linda and Matt takes him to others and tells them about his invisibility. Everyone is shocked to see the results. Linda tells Sebastian that one of their colleagues will stay with him to help him. She tells Sarah that she will be back by at 8 in the morning. When Sarah is sleeping alone in the lab, Sebastian quietly comes to her and touches her hairs. Then he unbuttons her shirt and touches her body inappropriately. When she wakes up, she finds her shirt is open and calls Sebastian to check if he is there. When she checks the monitor, she finds he is not in his bed. But when she turns around, he goes back to his room and lies in his bed. The next day, she tells Linda about her doubts on Sebastian, that he had done something to her last night. But she also stops her to talk with him about this, as she is not fully convinced if anything happened. Then Matthew goes to Sebastian and asks him about last night. He tells him that he went outside to drink a cup of coffee. After 3 days, Sebastian is ready to take the reversed serum. When Matthew injects him, Sebastian finds hard to breathe and tells them that something is wrong. Suddenly, he starts thrashing around the bed and breaks all straps. Carter and Matthew tries to calm him down, but they fail to hold him. Sebastian pushes Carter and kicks Matthew in his face. His body becomes visible for a moment, but he falls down and gets unconscious. Everyone put him on the table and Linda finds that his heart stops beating. Matthew performs CPR on him to bring him back, and luckily he gets his pulse back. But his body starts becoming invisible again. When he wakes up after some hours, Linda tells him that he was about to die. He asks her that he wants to make some adjustments if he will be invisible all the time. They decide to make latex mask for him to visible his body. In the following days, Matthew tries his best to reverse the formula without killing his friend. It has been 10 days of invisibility and Sebastian loses his anger. He is frustrated with the several tests on his body. One night, Sebastian decides to go out and Carter tries to stop him. When he failed to stop Sebastian, he immediately calls others to warn them about him. While driving alone, he decides to have fun with some kids and scares them with his strange face. Linda asks Matthew to visit the lab immediately and she decides to check Sebastian's home. When he arrives his home, he finds her hot neighbor taking off her clothes. He decides to hook up with the woman using his invisibility. He goes to her apartment and rings the doorbell several times. When she opens the door, she sees nothing outside. But when she comes inside, Sebastian also enters her apartment. She sits in front of a mirror and starts setting her hairs. Sebastian moves the mirror and the woman gets scared. She looks around the room in fear. When she turns away, Sebastian pushes her on the bed. Meanwhile, Linda also arrives in his apartment and gets his mask on the bed. After raping his neighbor, he finds Linda in his house. He decides to wait there until she leaves. At the lab, Frank provides tranquilizer weapons to everyone as they decide to find Sebastian. But suddenly he arrives in the lab and tells them that he went outside to take his important things. Linda warns him that she will tell the organization if he tries to go outside again. She tells Matthew that Sebastian's invisibility has affected his mind, as he has been invisible for more longer than other subjects. When Carter is doing some test on his body, Sebastian tells him that he hooked up with a woman when he was out. After a few days, Matthew calls Linda and informs her about decoding the reversed formula. But the process has failed during the simulation. Sebastian gets angry and lashes at Linda, saying he cannot stay here as a prisoner. Linda tries to calm him down. But Sebastian says he doesn't want her to go out with her boyfriend while he is trapped in this lab. Later in the night, he takes an electronic device and installs it in the CCTV of his room to make a video loop of his footage. Then he decides to go to Linda's house. When he arrives her apartment, he gets shocked to see Matthew with Linda. They become intimate, unaware about Sebastian's presence as he is invisible. He gets angry and breaks the window of her room. Linda immediately calls lab to inquire about Sebastian, and Frank tells her that he is laying inside his room. Meanwhile, Sebastian returned to the lab. While walking around the room, he is frustrated by an invisible dog. He grabs the dog and hits it on the wall in anger. Later, when Sarah asks him about the dead subject, he says he was sleeping when it died. After checking the footage, everyone is assured that he never left the lab. When Linda returns her home, she hears some noises in her apartment and gets disturbed by it. She again runs to the lab to check Sebastian. She sees the footage which shows him lying on his bed, but when she goes in his room, she doesn't find him there. She finds that Sebastian had been fooling them by running a video loop. Then she calls everyone to come together in the lab. Sebastian is in the parking area and finds the research team has come. Linda and Matthew go to Dr. Howard and inform him about Sebastian's experiment. But they don't know that they are followed by him. When they leave from there, he attacks Dr. Howard and pushes him into the pool. Howard screams for help while drowning. When his wife reaches there, she finds him dead. The next day, Linda visits the lab and calls Howard. She gets shocked to hear about his death. She tries to connect another member of the organization but failed. Then she and Matthew decide to meet the officials. When they go inside the lift, the security system gets blocked. Later, everyone finds that the password of the lab has been changed. Now they all decide to find Sebastian. When they are leaving the examination area, Janice lags behind. Suddenly Sebastian comes there and attacks her. She screams for help but her voice is drowned by the animal's noise. When they fail to find Sebastian, Linda warns him that the government already knows about what he had done. Then Sebastian tells everyone that he killed Dr. Howard last night. Soon everyone has realized that one of their members is missing. They put on heat vision and search for Janice. After some minutes, they find her dead inside a locker. Linda asks Frank to decode the password to activate the motion detectors. When they find something is moving around the corridors, Carter and Matthew grab the tranquilizer weapons and run after Sebastian. Linda guides them about his movement. Carter gets some signals behind the pipes and Matthew finds heat from vent. When Carter is alone, Sebastian attacks him. Matthew comes there and shoots him but he hits a pipe. During the shootout, Sebastian pushes Carter toward the wall. He hits on metal which explodes his artery and having a massive blood loss. Sebastian hides himself in heat coming from the pipes which affects the thermal glasses. Matthew runs out of tranquilizer and grabs a fire extinguisher. He sprays at Sebastian and the smoke makes his body visible to him. But he failed to hit him. Sebastian hits Matthew to the ground with a kick and punches him. But Linda arrives there to save him and takes him from there. Sarah finds that Carter has lost lots of blood. She takes several blood bags from the fridge. But before she could save him, Sebastian arrives and locks her inside. She throws the blood at ground to get Sebastian to see him. She also throws blood at him but he tackles her and shoots her with a tranquilizer. While she is unconscious he breaks her neck and kills her. Meanwhile Carter also dies from bleeding. Frank, Matthew and Linda are searching for Sarah. When they find her dead body inside the fridge, Sebastian attacks Frank and stabs him with a crowbar. Then he stabs Matthew with a metal rod and locks him with Linda inside the freezer. He goes to his room and put on his mask again. Linda treats Matthew's wounds and escapes from there using a magnetized handle. After opening the door, she takes Matthew out of the freezer and lights fire to warm his body. At that moment, Sebastian takes some chemicals to create an explosive and set fire inside the lab. He places the formula inside a centrifuge and sets a 5 minutes timer. Then he enters an elevator and Linda sees him. She attacks him with a flamethrower. She tries to open the lift door and continuously shooting fire at him. After coming out of elevator, Sebastian peels away his burnt clothes and gets invisible again. Linda activates the sprinklers with that flamethrower. When she is trying to find him, Sebastian attacks her from behind. He tries to kill her by pressing her neck with his foot. Suddenly Matthew comes there and attacks Sebastian with a metal rod. When Sebastian tries to hit him with rod, he pushes him hard and he hits into a fuse box. After getting some electric shocks, his body becomes visible. Matthew finds the explosive set by Sebastian. They immediately run to the lift in hope of climbing the ladder connected to outside. But when they are climbing up, the bomb explodes and sends the lift upward, hitting Linda. When it comes down, it stops over Matthew's head. When they are climbing the ladder, Sebastian grabs Linda's leg and pulls her down. They both fall on the elevator hanging by a thick wire. Linda tries to escape but Sebastian grabs her and starts kissing her. He tells her that it is for old time's sake. When they are kissing, she grabs the wire and disconnects it with her foot. She hangs onto the wire and Sebastian falls down to death. Later, Matt and Linda are saved by the firefighters and here the movie ends.